All right, guys. In the previous slideshow, we're talking about the idea, throughout this last standard about the United States expanding westward and how we do that with that idea of manifest destiny. And we talked about specific ways in which we can gain in land through Louisiana Purchase, war with Mexico, treaties with countries like England. And that was going to lead to, once we gain all this land, people are going to start heading out that way. And we talked about how it's pretty dangerous. And with this gain of land and moving out, there's going to be a lot of issues that are going to arise in our country, specifically economically and politically, between the North and South. So this one's going to be called sectionalism. Sectionalism is the idea that there's a split between the North and South over the society, economics, and politics. And then sectionalism, the antebellum period. This word antebellum is a Latin word which means before war. In our case, we're talking about before the Civil War specifically. So anytime you see antebellum period, it's talking about the time period before the Civil War. Got a picture here, just got people kind of moving west. You can see the wagon trails, the horses. They might have walked out there going with their whole entire family on the places like the Oregon Trail, trying to find a new life. Okay. So our first one here is the reasons that people go west. Okay, there's going to be three main reasons people go west. Number one is gold. We talk about the gold rush in 1849. That occurs in California after they find gold in 1848. People are going to rush out there looking for gold, and they're going to be nicknamed the 49ers. We got a picture back here looking at families who are just trying to get anywhere in a creek and what was called the Comstock lode in the Sierra Nevada mountain region, looking for a bunch of gold and trying to make it rich. Another reason people go out west is land. There's a ton of land available. Okay, we're actually going to have to incentivize people after the Civil War to go out west to try to settle these areas and giving a lot of land away for free. And then the last one is going to be religion. Christians and other religious groups will go west. One reason is going to try to spread Christianity to Native Americans. Another one is just be looking for religious freedom. The most popular religious group that goes west is the Mormons. They're a section of Christianity. Mormonism was started by Joseph Smith, and eventually by this guy will be taken west out to Salt Lake City by Brigham Young. You probably heard of Brigham Young University before. Okay, they're the most popular for going west, not because that's the most people were Mormons that went west, just because they pretty much took their whole religious group out west and started a whole new state. If you go to Utah today, Utah, still a majority of people in that state today practice Mormonism. Okay. And if you go to Brigham Young University, that is a Mormon school, and it was developed again for Mormons. Okay. Our next one here is North and South economic split. In the 1800s, there's going to be a huge split between the North and South. And this goes all the way back into the New England, middle, and southern regions we talked about when New England had the trading and whaling and fishing, and then the South had the agriculture. This is going to be further split in the 1800s by a guy named Eli Whitney. Whitney will start this when he invents the cotton gin in 1797. This cotton gin makes the South a cotton kingdom. Sometimes the cotton was actually called white gold. Before the cotton gin, it wasn't economically viable to actually grow cotton. It was very labor intensive. To pick a pound of cotton, if you can see on this cotton gin right here, the seeds in it, to take the seeds out of a pound of cotton, it would take one person one day to do 1 pound of cotton. Now, because of the cotton gin, a person can clean 50 pounds of cotton a day, and now growing cotton becomes very valuable. Okay, and because of that, you're going to see an increase of demand for slaves and also increase of price for slaves. Okay, because they're more useful because of the cotton gin. Okay, and then another thing that's come out of the cotton gin, you're going to need more land to grow cotton. Because of farmers making a ton of money with cotton, the plantation owners are going to start trying to expand cotton everywhere. And they're going to look west to find other places to grow cotton. And with that move west, the idea of slavery, what to do with it, to spread slavery or not to spread slavery, is going to come up with this. Then you're going to have the interchangeable parts in the North. By Eli Whitney, this is the idea that you replace a part of a gun instead of the whole thing. Got a picture here that shows the different parts of guns. Okay, interchangeable parts is key today, just about everything. Imagine if your wiper in your car went bad and someone's like, oh, got to get a new car. No, if your wiper goes bad, you get a new wiper. Your tire goes flat, you get a new tire. That idea comes out because of interchangeable parts. So instead of if you broke the trigger to your gun, you wouldn't just have to buy a whole new gun. You could just get the trigger. So more factories are going to pop up to provide these parts for guns and other commodities that will be produced in this time period. And this idea, North versus South, is going to be the plantation system versus the factory system. Plantation system in the South with slavery and growing stuff like cotton. Factory system in the North with the growth of cities and people working in small factories to produce manufactured goods. Okay. Next one, you're going to see some more sectionalism increase. Again, the sectionalism, like we mentioned in the first slide, is the split between the North and South politically and economically. The North wanted a couple things here. The North wanted a strong government, manufacturing centers in the North, and tariffs and a national bank. The tariffs would increase the price of foreign goods, so foreign goods would be more expensive, so you're more likely to buy those manufactured goods from the North. The South, on the other hand, wanted a smaller central government, kind of do what you want, decrease the size of government. They wanted to expand land to plant crops like cotton and keep slavery. Okay? And they were against tariffs. We'll talk about this in class. This is a big thing. The South did not like tariffs. South Carolina actually threatens to secede from the United States in 1832 because they're trying to be forced to pay tariffs. The West tended to side with the South. The West, this part of the country right here, the West didn't really like the North's ideas of the rich political elite kind of ruling over the country. So they tended to, when it came politically, they sided with the South. They wanted the idea of a smaller government as well. They weren't necessarily for tariffs, and they didn't really like a national bank either. Okay. Then another idea comes up called the American system. The American system was the idea of Henry Clay. He wanted to place tariffs on imports. Okay. And if you place tariffs on imports, just like we said before, it would increase the price of foreign goods, so people would more likely buy American goods, and those goods were mostly produced in the North. Then he also wanted to create a national bank. Okay, he wanted to continue the national bank because a national bank could control the money supply. It also could help make loans to businesses like factories. So then you could build more factories to produce more goods. And in return, to help move all these goods throughout the country, Henry Clay advocated for what's called internal improvements. Basically, the idea we're going to build a bunch of roads and canals in our country to connect it. Okay. And we still talk about rivers being the main source and main way to get around the country. This is going to be true all the way up in about the 1840s until the railroad really takes off in the mid 1800s, and the canals and stuff will not be needed as much because railroads would do most of the transporting throughout our country. The North was for the American system, which makes sense because they had most of the factories. The tariff would protect the factories because you're more likely to buy goods from a northern factory. The bank would actually help you start a factory by giving you a loan to create that business, and the internal improvements would help you ship your goods throughout the country. So the North was always for this system. The South was against it, and this is because of one thing, and it's because of tariffs. Again, the South, if anything has to do with tariffs, the South doesn't like, and the South was against tariffs, so they did not like the American system. And a little different here, yes, the West goes politically with the South. However, economically, when it comes to internal improvements, the West does like the American system because it'll help connect the West to the rest of the country so that you can get west quicker, and also you could send goods quicker from west to east and east to west along these canals and roads. Okay? And they got kind of just to talk about the three regional economies became connected and so forth. Here's your North, here's your South. And we're talking about West. Again, we're not talking about West like California. We're talking about West like the Ohio Valley, Chicago area. This is the West back then. We have not gone all the way out there yet. We don't really start exploring that until after the Civil War. We really start pushing more and more people west. Okay. And our last slide here, we're talking about the Erie Canal, probably one of the most famous public government projects ever. The Erie Canal will connect the area of Albany, New York, which is located right here on the map near Amsterdam and Troy, and they will hand dig, you can see down here at the bottom one, they will hand dig a canal from the Hudson River all the way to Lake Erie, just south of Niagara Falls here in the Buffalo area. Okay, so literally hand dug it all the way across. And if you look at these cities, a bunch of these major cities are still up there in the upper part of New York, and most of the population of upstate New York still lives within the 50 miles of the Erie Canal, because you lived within the Erie Canal, you could transport and ship goods wherever you wanted. Okay. The biggest thing about the Erie Canal, it's going to connect the markets of the Northeast to the Midwest. So the Northeast being right here, specifically, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, all these places that manufacturing centers can now ship their goods up the Hudson River, across the Erie Canal. And then what will happen is they can start sending that through the Great Lakes region to places like Detroit here, Chicago, Milwaukee, to a lot of major city centers. And the idea of a millionaire comes out in this time period because of the Erie Canal. New York City is going to grow exponentially, and the term millionaire will be used for the first time in the 1820s and 1830s, and all has to do with the growth of the Erie Canal. And the biggest thing from the Erie Canal is that, one, prices will decrease. Prices specifically on food. Food that's grown in the Midwest area can now be shipped a lot quicker, a little faster, can now be shipped a lot quicker to the East Coast, so people have easier access to food and cheaper access to food. So they'll have more money to spend because they're not spending as much on food to survive. Another thing that'll decrease is shipping times. Something that might have taken 3 weeks to maybe 5 weeks over land by travel can now be done through the Erie Canal in about a week or less. So you're going to have prices go down, shipping go down. So goods we're going to start going crazy between the Northeast and the Midwest because of this canal. Obviously, it'll change even more when we start building railroads in the 1840s and 1850s. But the Erie Canal and other canals like it, because canals will be built all throughout the Northeast to connect it. If you see right here, the Champlain Canal connected the St. Louis River through the Lake Champlain all the way down into New York City as well. Okay, these aren't coincidences. Where they're building these canals, they're trying to connect it so they can ship their goods. There's a ton of little canals that get connected off of the Erie Canal as well. Okay. All right, that's going to do it for this this section. As always, I hope you have a good one. We'll see you in class.